Welcome to the Geek in Review, the podcast focused on innovative and creative ideas in the legal profession. I'm Marlene Gebauer.
And I'm Greg Lambert. And today we have a special episode where we're bringing on our friend Joe Breda.
So exciting.
Yeah, who's president of Bloomberg Law, and Mathew Rotenberg, who's CEO and co-founder at Dashboard Legal. And it was announced this morning, by the time we get this thing published, that Bloomberg has acquired Dashboard Legal in order to expand Bloomberg's reach within the legal workflow market. So Joe and Mathew, we appreciate you guys jumping on the call with us today to talk more about what this means for the two of you and for the legal industry.
I wouldn't rather be anywhere else. Thanks.
Well, Joe, with the acquisition of Dashboard Legal, Bloomberg Law is clearly aiming to enhance its suite of workflow tools for the legal industry. Would you describe how you envision Dashboard Legal's project management and collaboration features integrating with Bloomberg Law's existing tools, such as AI-powered contract solutions?
So that's an excellent question. I do want to make sure we allow Matt to explain for your audience a little bit exactly what Dashboard Legal does, and then how we're going to fold those into the ecosystem will make a lot more sense. But I will tell you that, we started as a research platform. We definitely have ambitions to extend into attorneys' workflows. We launched Bloomberg Law Contract Solutions last summer, and this is the next step towards fulfilling that vision. If you wouldn't mind, I'd like Matt to talk a little bit about Dashboard Legal and what it does for his customers and our customers.
Of course.
Jump in, please do.
Sure. Yeah. Happy to start there. So, Dashboard Legal was really born from a pain I experienced 7 years practicing big law in New York City. And it's really just about how lawyers are getting organized and collaborating. And if you look at the time lawyers spend on process, just getting things from A to Z without things slipping through the cracks, it's a vast majority of their time. And they're doing these project management processes in their inbox. So the goal of Dashboard Legal from the beginning, now we've had a number of iterations, but the thesis has always been the same. How do we smooth out the project management, matter management components that are required to practice law, to be an effective attorney? That's really what we've been delivering up till now, both with our kind of associate workflow persona and then more recently to partners and general counsels. But where I think the overlap really appeared, and I'll obviously let Joe speak to this too, was that our customers, lawyers, were identifying their biggest pain points around project management. They didn't necessarily use that term, but they're talking about just managing the increased complexity and volume of information that they're responsible for, and that they need help. Now, that doesn't take away from their work with document drafting and all kinds of other mature categories in e-discovery and burgeoning ones like AI. But the really, I think the pain point is that 80%, the time they're spending during their day just trying to manage all the moving pieces.
Yeah, I've basically heard this too, that it's just so hard to keep up with things and sort of have one space where they can sort of see where everything is happening.
Yeah. And I've seen their Outlook folder structure, so I understand what you mean by using Outlook to manage the projects.
Yeah, it's one tool. Lawyers are using one tool for so many different types of needs. And at the end of the day, the inbox is just one electronic filing cabinet of other people's priorities. And people engage in this daily routine of dragging and dropping and endlessly searching. And we're trying to really alleviate that pain point and bring them some visualizations, some clear understanding of where their projects stand, who's doing what, and do so in a way that feels natural, feels modern, and really slots nicely into their existing workflow.
Yeah. I mean, and so we came to the same conclusion, researching the market is just such a gap in just tooling for collaboration and managing work for lawyers. Partners and GCs tell us it's difficult for me to understand like exactly what the state of different assignments, where they are in the process, who's got what's stuck. And by using this tool, it really provides a lot of visibility. So I think that's where Matt is going with, you know, young attorneys who start out from school totally get this. Like they expect to have some kind of ecosystem to work in. But getting the partners and more senior attorneys and supervising attorneys to really see the value of being able to understand what's going on in these growing teams is a really big part of the value proposition. Where this kind of joins up with a broader vision for us is, and I was Greg and I were talking a week or so ago, or maybe 3 weeks by now, down his place. And, we have a lot of really cool content and functionality in Bloomberg Law that even attorneys who have it don't know about it, because you have to go that extra step of knowing about the tool, knowing how to use it, logging in, what's my password. In an ideal world, that stuff would just kind of flow in as you're working. And, we started Bloomberg Law. We first launched a web product in 2009. So we're kids compared to some of the other competitors. And so for us, the change curve has always been, part of our fundamental challenge. I think we've done really well, but we had to really bring differentiated products to market and get people to stop what they're doing for a second and take a look at other tools outside what they might have learned in law school. And I think cracking that code, a lot of it is finally bringing the content and the promise of AI into the workflow that the attorney is actually using. And so that's why we're so excited about this. And that's the mission we're about to embark on together.
Yeah. Well, Matt, taking the two companies and putting them together now, how do you see the new offering kind of shaping the way that the future of legal workflow management? And what is it about the Bloomberg content and the platform that you think will add to the current product?
Sure. So I think Dashboard Legal today is the structure by which legal work is getting done. It's a skeleton for it. And there's other components that need to be in there as well. Content is a big part of it. And so I think some of the initial integrations are going to be focused on embedding the incredible Bloomberg content library into natural ways within the Dashboard Legal structure. But taking it one step further, AI is changing the way law is being practiced. We all know that's happening. And some of the earliest conversations I had with Joe and the other senior leadership team just kind of cemented that understanding that we both share. But the key, I think, that everyone's coming to realize about AI is that it has to be implemented in the right way, with the right use case, very deliberately, and putting those AI components into a structured workflow with content that's relevant, and then allowing the AI tool to access, summarize, get the information they need, visualize what they need when they need it, is the opportunity for kind of these three tools to come together for the workstation of the future, the legal workstation of the future. That's the goal. That's always been the goal. And honestly, personally, it's exciting to see such alignment on where we think the practice of law is going, and to have the incredible talent and resources and credibility and leadership that Bloomberg and Joe and his team provide.
So want to focus a little bit on generative AI. Dashboard Legal, Matt, was developed by attorneys like you and Fedor Garin, who recognize the need for more efficient task tracking and collaboration in law firms. So, how do you plan to leverage this kind of insider perspective to drive further innovation at Bloomberg Law, especially considering the role of generative AI and other advancing technologies in the legal sector?
Yeah, I think I think we're and we're in alignment with Joe on this too, that the needs of a lawyer are still going to stay the same, which is they need to be the trusted advisor. They need to provide counsel and and assurances and credibility to the most important aspects of businesses and people's lives. And the smoothing out of that process is really the opportunity. So the skeletal structure, the content, and talking about AI is as good as the content that you feed it. So if we have the workflows that they're working on, you're working on a litigation, you're working on a big transaction, and it's in a workspace, it's condensed into a workspace, you can do an incredible amount of sophisticated things to manipulate and surface that data. So that's kind of the thesis, is that it's going into a certain workspace, and then we can leverage AI to do a whole number of things, draft, summarize, pull in information, collaborate, automatically create tasks, automatically communicate with people. All of that, just more fluid workflow that really helps alleviate the complexity and volume problems that we're hearing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, let me give you just a concrete example. Imagine you set up a dashboard or just basically a workspace for a transaction. Consider it's a deal room type thing. It becomes a deal room, right? So you have collaborators that you add there. You have task lists that are assigned to various people. And then you have documents, drafts of things, addendum, exhibits, things like that. So now you have this little kind of constrained library of this is everything about this thing that you're working on. A lot of times what you'll want is, I need an answer out of something in this pile. So I want to know, what are the closing conditions? I want to know, compare these two versions and tell me what changed. If I have a space set up for litigation and I have some drafts in there, I might want to say, check this thing for compliance with local court rules. And those are all the types of things that you can do with generative AI in a workflow like Dashboard Legal. It's like hyper context sensitive AI, like right when you need it. And, we individually, Marlene and Greg, we've talked about this off to the side in various conversations. One of the big challenges for law firms to really take full advantage of generative AI is they have to figure out a way to use it, but still retain control of really important client data and be assured that it's not going anywhere. And as much as we'd like to say, look, we're Bloomberg, you should definitely trust us with it, and I think you should, there's still a lot of discomfort around moving my files from point A to point B and losing kind of control of it. The way Matt and his team have integrated iManage and NetDocs into the Dashboard Legal, so that they're not really copies. They're just kind of like a virtual reference to where the documents continue to live safe and sound in the law firm's infrastructure. We think operating through that paradigm will allow us to bring generative AI to client workflow in a way that we haven't seen in a lot of places.
Yeah, and Joe, just to build on that with the clients, do you see this acquisition as an ability for you to kind of expand your reach into maybe the small to mid-sized law firms as well, who may not have a huge, IT or a way to manage projects like this, like the big law firms do?
100%. I mean, I think, if you're a sole practitioner, you probably don't need a collaboration tool to work with yourself. You might, but, email might work for you. But small law firms, face the same challenges as big law firms in a lot of cases without the support, right? Without the IT departments, as you stated. And having a platform that doesn't need to be configured to the nth degree to make sense right out of the box, I think is really powerful. So we see opportunity at big law, mid-sized firms, but also in-house legal departments that are continuing to grow and take on more work in-house. And they are really acutely feeling the pain of managing all the tasks that are in flight.
Yeah, and I just to add to that point, I think that the CLM products that have gone to market have proven themselves to be valuable in a certain way, but just too much in a lot of other ways. Too costly. A lot of people are being priced out of the market. The implementation just takes way too long, and it's too expensive. And so for the in-house teams, looking for something just lighter and to actually address the day-to-day workflow, Dashboard Legal, powered by Bloomberg, I think is a really nice solution that is accessible, and that's our goal. And the whole ethos of Dashboard Legal and what Joe has caught on to is just making something pleasant, making it elegant, simple, and that's hard to do, but lawyers deserve it, and that's why we're building a tailored tool to facilitate legal work.
Yeah, we'd love to give you a demo if you haven't seen it at some point, but it has the kind of ease of use that you expect from like a consumer level product. It makes sense. You don't have to be a rocket scientist, and you don't need an IT staff to use it.
Mm-hmm. So Dashboard Legal powered by Bloomberg. I like the sound of that.
Yeah, we do too.
So Mathew, the feedback from existing Dashboard Legal clients like Naveen Pai at Gunderson Detmer seem to be pretty positive on this acquisition. I'm wondering, now that Dashboard Legal is part of the Bloomberg Law platform, have you heard from other clients? Are they also feeling positive? Have they given any feedback about how to further, enhance the platform's capabilities, to sort of meet their needs?
Yeah, well, we haven't publicized it yet, so just a few customers are aware of what's going on. But I think.
Well, now the cat's out of the bag.
Cat's out of the bag today. Yeah, it is now. But for our existing customers, nothing is going to immediately change. I mean, the product is still going to work the same way. They're going to get the same level of service from me and our team. And then what we're able to do with Bloomberg is really a tremendous opportunity, which is to expand the offering to include items on our roadmap that were way far out, and now we have the resources and talent to deliver those things. And we've been getting feedback for years. That's what's led to the success of this, is just iterating quickly. And I think the combined forces will allow us to really deliver the highest quality legal workflow tool on the market.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to understand the way we think about how Dashboard Legal fits in, and how important it is to our overall strategy. I really see this as the hub of a bunch of connected workflows. So it's a hub that has spokes to research and content. It's a hub that has connections to drafting tools. You can imagine a future suite of products: legal spend management, litigation hold, these things that all connect and are kind of centered around a matter, but are integrated in a way so you can go from one to another, right? So if there's a matter, a litigation matter, in-house counsel is dealing with in Dashboard Legal, they can initiate a litigation hold and track it from within that software. So to create a whole modular system that talks to each other is something that we don't really think exists in the market right now.
Yeah, I like the way you describe that. It's very, very visual. Like I can see it the way you're explaining it. Joe or Mathew, is there anything that we missed that you'd like to share with the audience before we say goodbye?
Well, let me just say, and then I'll give Matt a turn. A huge part of this deal is having Matt and Feder join the team. They are sometimes with acquisitions, the founders will stay on as consultants for a limited amount of time. That's not the case here. They were really part of the value of Dashboard Legal and a big driver of the acquisition. So Matt's going to be joining the B-Law senior leadership team. We're going to be working very closely together. He's going to start out of course, with his primary focus on dashboard legal, and we have plenty of work to do. But we're going to use his talents as we really kind of expand into this, workflow enabled by AI and content, this overall strategy. So I'm super excited to start working with him. And Feder is a fantastic engineer. He's already accepted a position with Bloomberg Engineering in New York. Going to be an incredibly valuable asset as well.
Yeah, thanks, Joe, and I appreciate the vote of faith here. And what appeared early on was just the alignment and excitement about the same vision we have for changing the way and improving the way lawyers work. And I think those conversations were everything in terms of our excitement about the deal and really pushing it through. So this is the opportunity of a lifetime. I'm excited to deliver on the promise of Dashboard Legal, and I'm 100% confident that Bloomberg gives us the best shot to do that.
Yeah, for sure. Just to give you a little bit of flavor, there's a long text thread between Matt and I going back months. Oh, we could do this, and then we could do this, and so we have we're fully loaded. We're ready to go.
Well, good. It sounds like there's a lot of excitement going on both parties here. So Joe Breda and Matt Rotenberg, I want to thank both of you for coming on and sharing the new news of the acquisition of Dashboard Legal by Bloomberg Law. Thank you both.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Yes, congratulations to you both. And thanks to all of you, our listeners, for taking the time to listen to the Geek and Review podcast. We'd love to hear from you, so please find us on social media sites like LinkedIn. We also want to thank Jerry David DeSica for the wonderful music you hear on every episode. Thank you, Jerry.
Thanks, Jerry. All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. I appreciate the opportunity.